So that was my auto dosing system. Just showing it off there. For people who dose fertilizers or liquid CO2 like that was one of them was TNC light, which is plant fertilizer without the nitrates, and the other one was TNC CO2. And because there's no way that I'm going to be dosing any sort of fertilizer or liquid CO2 manually every day at the same time, it's just something that I'm not going to do. I bought the auto dosing system. It's a really cheap one, and I've got a YouTube video on that, and I'll show you which one it is on that. But that's just thought I'd show you that in action. Comes on automatically and doses exactly how much you want and when, which is great. So this tank, this is my main tank. I call it the main tank. It's a 300 litre tank in the living room, and I just thought I'd do an update on it. Obviously I've done a load of videos of this. I only have 2 aquariums, but I do change them up quite a bit, and I do updates now and again on each one. Haven't done a video in a while apart from my last video, so I thought I'd update people on this tank, because the reason I haven't done an update on this tank is because all the plants sort of died off and I could not grow any plants. It's very low tech aquarium, and that's sort of the reason why the plants wouldn't grow. And I'll go through that now, because all these plants in here, not the Vallis and not the Amazon swords, but all the other plants have only been in here about a week, and they seem to be doing good. But I've tried this a few times, putting new plants in, and they kept dying off. So I'm not going to do a video on the tank where it just looks horrible, like it really annoyed me. So the reason why my plants were doing so bad, and it took me ages, it's ridiculous, but it took me ages to figure out, but I wanted more growth from my plants. So what I did, which I'm sure many other people have done, is I thought I'd buy a really expensive LED aquarium light rather than the one I had before. The one I had before was a 4-foot aquarium light. I think it's one of those Nicrew ones, and it was about 50 quid, £55, and that's relatively cheap. And I thought, I want more growth in the plants, I want the tank to look better, so I buy a Fluval 3.0 freshwater plant light, and these are £240. I managed to get one for £210, really expensive, especially just for like a light, especially when you can get them for like 50 quid. But the reason I told myself I needed one is because you can time them using an app, so they gradually come on and off. So they don't flick on and then flick off and stress out the fish. So I thought I'll just get one, because it's going to be amazing. And ever since I had one, I got it a few months ago now, and ever since I had it, the plants just did so bad. I'd put them in and they looked great for a week, maybe 2, and then just slowly get overrun by algae and just fall apart. Like every plant, it was ridiculous. So as you see, just on the right side at the back, so not the far right bunch of plants, but the one in, it's called Alodia. And this plant is, I think, one of the easiest plants to grow in the aquarium. It's basically a weed in America. It's called Alodia, and I thought I'll use this plant as a guide to see how well it's set up. And after messing with the light for so long in the app, you can adjust the brightness and how long it's on for, and how long the light takes to come on and takes to go off. So for instance, this light takes an hour to go to its brightness, its set brightness, stays at that brightness, then takes an hour to dim down, which is really nice for the fish. It's kind of natural, sunrise and sunset. I did all that, And because obviously it takes ages to see the difference in the plants, so I bought that Alodia as a test plant because I was spending way too much on plants and then they all dying. I was getting big bunches of them as well and they just wouldn't last. So in the end I bought some Alodia. I changed all the light levels and how long, and then I turned the lights right down to about 45-50% brightness, which I thought was crazy because it's 50% of the maximum brightness of the light. And the Alodia started taking really well, started growing really well, and eventually it reached the top of the tank. I had 2 foot strands of Alodia, and I thought it's brilliant, done. I've set the light up right, and that was the issue. The light was way too bright, and obviously we know a balanced aquarium is what you need. So if you're giving your aquarium too much light, and it's a low-tech aquarium, high light means high CO2 and high nutrients. I had the nutrients. I've got the liquid CO2 and the nutrients, fertilisers, being injected into the tank every day. I've got that. Had the high light. But obviously I'm not injecting CO2, so the plants just won't grow. It won't work. So I'm keeping the nutrients, keeping the CO2, the liquid CO2, how it is. But because I don't have injected CO2, using a gas canister, I have to keep the lights low. So low lights, fertilizers, liquid fertilizers as normal, and no CO2. No CO2, low lighting, that's the way it goes. If you want high lighting and fast growth, you need to have injected CO2. And I thought about doing injected CO2, I really did. But after doing a lot of research, it just seems like you need to replace the canister a lot of times. Like every month or every 2 months or something, especially on a 300 litre tank like this, I'd get through a lot of CO2. And once that CO2 goes from the canister, if you don't replace it quite quickly, the whole tank can just go overrun with algae because it's instantly out of balance as soon as that CO2 depletes. So I opted to not use that, and I thought I'd just carry on, lower the light, and it's worked. Obviously the plants don't grow really quick, but they grow. And they're not covered in algae. Like, they were just brown, just covered in algae. I think it's like diatoms, which isn't actually algae, but it's because the light was too high. So now that I've got over that issue and my plants are surviving, I thought I'd do a video on it. But like I said, most of these plants have only been in there a week or 2 weeks, so I'm still waiting for them to really take off and look really nice. So there's my auto doser on the left with the fertiliser and liquid CO2. I just used some real thick 3M, it's called 3M, double-sided tape. Put a big strip on the back, stuck it to the side of the stand, and it holds up really well, better than putting screws in everywhere. So this is a filter, and in the last video I talked about getting a new tank, and how I'm going to set it up with the inline heater and how I've done it on my main tank, and this is it here. So fluval filter with Eheim tubing and an inline heater, because you can't put the inline heater on ribbed hosing that comes with the fluval, so I've swapped that over for the Eheim hosing with the inline heater, which is brilliant. And I've used all the Eheim intake and outtakes, and it looks really good. And that's what I was talking about in the last video. I'm going to do exactly the same thing on the new tank, which is going to be 100 litres with a fluval 206. Same Eheim hosing, same inline heater. It's going to look really good, and I really like how it works on this tank. And also you see the thermometer, little digital thermometer on the left reads 24.9. That does not move. this heater is very consistent. The water temperature stays the exact same all the time, and when I do a water change and the temperature of the water is a little bit too low, it just really quickly goes straight back to 24.9. Like, it's really good. But I've only had it for a couple of weeks, so I can't really recommend it that much because I haven't had it that long. But it seems to be working really well for the most part. We'll see in 6 months' time, see if it still works as well as it does now. I'll leave a link to that heater in the description, Amazon link, because I'm going to get a second one as well for the smaller tank. It's feeding the fish here. Some fluval bug bites. Got them off eBay. They're a little bit cheaper off eBay, and the fish really like them. So yeah, that's the update on the 300 litre tank. I thought I haven't showed it off for a while, and now the plants are starting to do relatively well for what is a low-tech aquarium. I thought I'd show it. So thanks for watching. I hope you can take something away from this video. Any comments or thoughts, please leave a comment. I'll most likely reply. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.